Will your relationship last? How do you know whether your relationship has a healthy dynamic or a toxic dynamic? In this video, I want to talk about Dr. Gottman's research, including 5-to-1 ratio on 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. I also want to talk about some of my personal experiences in relationships and what helped me determine whether a relationship was going to be saved or not. Hey guys, my name is Polina. If this is your first time on my channel, and let's dive into the relationships talk. So Dr. Gottman is a psychologist and relationships expert, and he's very, very renowned in this whole field of social psychology. He even founded Gottman Institute, and they carried out longitudinal studies over 30 years or more, and they found out that they could determine whether a couple was heading for a divorce within the first 3 minutes of the couple interacting with one another. Their predictions were 90% accurate, which is mind-blowing. That's why I think his research is very trustworthy, and I've definitely correlated my own relationship stories with his research. So the first idea that I want to tell you about is the 5-to-1 magic ratio. I actually talked about it a little bit in my previous video about my engagement, but I want to dive into a little bit more depth here. The thing is, every single couple fights, but couples who stay together, they fight slightly differently. Even during the fights, they are still trying to improve the dynamic of the fight instead of like heading downhill all the way. They might touch each other, or they might say something encouraging even in the middle of fighting. And the 5-to-1 magic ratio just states that couples who end up staying together have a 5-to-1 ratio of positive interactions to negative interactions. When this is the case, your brain rationalizes that staying in this relationship is beneficial for you, for your nervous system, for your happiness, and stuff like that. When the ratio drops to 1-to-1, meaning 1 positive interaction for every single negative interaction, then your brain over time starts to think, this is simply not worth it. I'm tired, I'm fatigued from fighting so much and from having all of this negativity in my life. And that's when you start harboring the idea of leaving. 5-to-1 is just the bare minimum. A lot of couples who stay together long term have an even higher ratio, like 10-to-1 or maybe even more. And Gottman Institute says that anger is not a problem. Like, every person is capable of getting angry occasionally, and that's absolutely normal. What matters is how you handle your anger and whether you see your partner as a part of you or as an enemy when you fight. I think that's one of the most challenging things, to remain in union even when you're fighting. So yeah, conflict is absolutely unavoidable. It is absolutely inevitable in every relationship. But the way a couple handles conflict tells a lot about where they are heading. I'm also leaving some Gottman Institute article links down below if you want to read more about this. Another topic that's so important to talk about is the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. It is pretty much 4 behaviors that are absolutely damaging to any relationship. And they can also serve as a harbinger of what's going to happen to this specific couple. The 4 behaviors are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. So let's start with criticism. I think criticism hinges on the idea that you're not describing a particular behavior, you're trying to attack the person himself. A clear sign of criticism is when you're focusing on the word you. It's like you this, you that. You're trying to assign all of these adjectives to this person instead of talking about what they did or what you're feeling. You're criticizing their whole being. It is very different from complaint, because complaint can be structured, it can be objective, and it talks about a specific event. But criticism goes much, much deeper than that. There's a difference between saying, I'm so upset that you didn't call me tonight after finishing dinner, and saying, you're so selfish, you always forget to call me, you're always this. When there's an attack on someone's personality, this person might start distancing himself, and this can definitely be super detrimental to the relationship. The second behavior I want to talk about is contempt, and contempt apparently is the biggest predictor of the divorce. It is possibly the worst behavior out of all 4, because this is when we can get truly mean and truly try to attack someone else. Contempt can manifest itself in ridiculing your loved one, mimicking their behavior, being super sarcastic and almost like acidic, and you're just overall showing so much disrespect for that person. This kind of behavior also screams, I'm better than my partner, I'm superior to my partner. And no one likes being on the receiving end of this. Apparently, studies show that couples that have a lot of contempt in their relationship also suffer from weakened immune systems. That's how much our close relationships can affect us and our physical health. I feel like when I was reading about this, I was trying to recognize some patterns in my own behavior, and I feel like when I get really, really upset, I can sometimes be sarcastic. So that's definitely been illuminating, you know? The third horseman of the apocalypse is defensiveness. Defensiveness is when we try to defend ourselves no matter if we are right or we are wrong, and we just go into the defensive mode. And this makes our partner feel like we are just dismissing what they're saying. We are dismissing their complaints, and we're just focusing on being right at any cost. I feel like this can also lead to isolation. It's like you're trying to tell your partner that you are upset with something, and instead they try to defend themselves, and sometimes they try to twist it so that you are in the wrong for voicing it. That makes the partner think twice before saying something else again. And that can definitely lead to isolation and deeper problems in the relationship. The fourth one is stonewalling, which pretty much means that you're withdrawing from the argument. You cannot take it anymore. It's taken a large emotional toll on you, and you just cannot continue. So during stonewalling, one partner just randomly shuts down and stops responding. No verbal responses, no non-verbal responses. They are just completely withdrawn, and you can't even get through to them at this point. I think at this point, the person probably feels like no matter what they're saying, it's like not working. So they don't want to do this anymore. This can also be very harmful because it just leaves the conflict unresolved. I'm definitely guilty of this one as well, but I'm trying to work on myself. Okay, clearly these four behaviors I just described are toxic to the relationship, but sometimes they're not as persistent or not as prominent, and maybe even a healthy relationship can have a little bit of those behaviors. And of course, there are other signs of unhealthy, toxic relationships like emotional abuse or manipulation or self-centeredness and like neglect of your partner. And all of these can also erode the relationship. But I wanted to focus specifically on Dr. Gottman's research. And when I look at this research and when I analyze some of my previous relationships, it makes so much sense why they failed. I think overall I was not destined to be with those people long term, but I can also definitely see the traits of toxic relationships in them. In one of my previous relationships, we fought all the time, and these fights were very explosive, very dramatic. They would go on for a long period of time, and they were honestly exhausting. And I think after a year and a half of fighting, I was just so fed up with this that I started checking out of the relationship. I no longer saw a point in this. And that experience taught me that I need my relationship to be my safe haven. That is absolutely necessary. That is fundamental to how I view romantic relationships. I want to see my partner and I want to feel comforted. I want to feel happy. I want to feel protected. I want to feel safe to express what I'm feeling. Maybe some people get a kick out of fighting all the time and, you know, these very dramatic relationships with very high highs and very low lows. But I just cannot do this. This is not my cup of tea. And I feel like with King, the vast majority of our relationship is exactly that. It's a safe haven. I feel very happy, very stable, but we do fight sometimes. And these fights are not like perfect textbook fights. I mean, nothing can be perfect in general, but King and I are even reading a book about communication styles and relationships to communicate better during the fights. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you are in a healthy relationship. If you find yourself in a toxic relationship, then maybe talk to your partner and try to find ways to make it healthy. I feel like all of this information is super useful. I think it's important to catch yourself in the act. If you find yourself being sarcastic or withdrawing, maybe you can learn to stop yourself in this moment and change the direction. Well, guys, thank you for being here with me today, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.